"Marry me on paper," Ada Sumner said to the quiet drifter, plain as if she were proposing a cattle trade. "And the land stays yours and mine, and out of his reach. That's all I'm asking. A husband on paper to keep a wolf off my water." Neither of them planned to mean a single word of it past the wedding. Neither of them had reckoned on the slow and dangerous business of two careful people learning, against all their intentions, to mean every word. Ada Sumner had buried her husband Cal 2 years before, and had been fighting to keep his land ever since. Not against the weather or the markets, the honest enemies a rancher expects, but against a man. His name was August Kell, and he owned the big spread that bordered Ada's good bottomland along Owl Creek, and he had decided, the way powerful men decide such things, that the Sumner water ought by rights to be his. He had tried to buy it first, with offers that started low and got lower as her situation got harder, all of them dressed up as neighborly concern. When Ada refused, Kell changed tactics. He was a patient, lawyer-armed man, and he dredged up an old surveyor's error in the original boundary filing and began pressing a claim in the territorial court that the most valuable stretch of Owl Creek, Ada's water, the thing that made her land worth anything, was rightly part of his grant. It was a bad claim, a bully's claim, but Kell had money and lawyers and time, and Ada Sumner was a widow alone with neither. And everyone in Halsey knew how those fights ended. A lone woman could not outlast a rich man's lawyers. She would bleed money she didn't have fighting it, and lose anyway, and Kell would take her water for the cost of court fees. And there was the other thing, the uglier thing Kell let her understand without ever quite saying it, that there was a simpler way. That a widow's troubles would all just vanish if she were to marry a strong neighbor who could protect her. Himself, that was, August Kell. At which point her land and water would become his by the cleanest, most respectable route of all, and everyone would call it a kindness. He was a widower himself, he reminded her, and it would be a sensible match. And he could be patient. But not forever. And the court case did make a body anxious, didn't it? It was the neatest trap Ada had ever seen. Fight him broke and lose, or marry him and hand him everything with a smile. She lay awake nights turning it over, and could find no way out. Until she found her way out, of all places, in her own hired man. Jonah Teal had drifted onto the Sumner place that spring looking for work, a lean, quiet man with gray starting at his temples, and a closed-off way about him that spoke of his own buried losses. Ada had hired him on for the season, wary at first, and watched him work. And what she'd watched over the months was a man who did honest work without being chased, who was gentle with the stock and square in his dealings, and who, when August Kell's riders came around to lean on the widow, had a way of being quietly, immovably present that made them think better of it. Jonah Teal didn't say much about his past, but Ada had come to trust him the way you trust a thing you've watched closely for a long time and never once seen ring false. So when the trap closed and she could see no other way, Ada Sumner went to her hired man with the strangest proposal a woman ever made. "Kell means to take my water, one way or another," she told him flat, in the barn, in the plain daylight where there could be no mistaking her meaning. "He'll either win it in court because I can't afford to fight, or he'll force me to marry him to escape the court, and either way he wins. There's only one move that beats him." She made herself say it. "If I'm already married to someone else, a man with no interest in helping Kell, then his marriage scheme is dead. And a household with a husband in it can fight that claim in ways a lone widow can't, and the land stays mine. So I'm asking you, Jonah Teal, marry me, on paper, a bargain plain and square, You take my name and stand between me and that man and help me beat his claim, and you'll have a wage and a place and a share of saving this land. I'm not asking for anything else. Not your heart, not your anything. Just your name on a paper, and your word you'll see it through. That's all. Will you do it?" Jonah Teal was quiet a long moment, the way he was quiet about everything. And when he spoke, he did not say yes the way a man says yes to a wage. "I had a place once," he said slowly. "Down south, years back. My own. And a man like Kell, there's always a man like Kell, took it from me. The same patient lawyer's way, while I was too young and too poor and too alone to fight him. And I've been drifting ever since, with the taste of it still in my mouth." He looked at her. "So I'll tell you plain, Mrs. Sumner. I'd marry you on paper for the wage, sure. But I'd do it for free, and gladly. Just to watch a man like August Kell lose for once. You've got your paper husband. And you've got something more than that. You've got a man who's been waiting 20 years for the chance to stand in a bully's way and not back down." He put out his hand. "We have a deal." They were married in the Halsey courthouse on a Tuesday, cold and businesslike. 2 witnesses and no fuss, each of them privately certain it was nothing but a bargain and would stay that way. And August Kell, when the news reached him, went a color his lawyers found very interesting. Because a married woman with a husband willing to fight was a different and far more expensive problem than a lone widow he could wait out. And his neat marriage scheme was dead on the spot. But beating Kell's court claim was another matter, and it was in the fighting of it, side by side through that long, hard year, that the paper bargain quietly and dangerously began to turn real. Because they made, it turned out, a formidable team. Ada knew the land and its history. Jonah had learned, in losing his own place, exactly how a claim like Kell's was built and where it could be broken. Together, they dug. They tracked down the original surveyor's field notes, not the clean filed copy Kell's lawyers leaned on, but the man's own working journal, gathering dust in a territorial archive. And in it, in the surveyor's own scrawled hand, was the proof that the boundary error Kell was exploiting had been a copyist's mistake. That the true survey put the whole of Owl Creek squarely and beyond dispute on Sumner land. It was the thing that would beat him cold in open court. They found it together late one night by lamplight, and Ada had wept with relief, and Jonah had, without thinking, put his arm around her. And they had both gone very still, and stepped apart, and not spoken of it. Because it was not in the bargain, and they were both careful people who knew exactly how foolish it would be to let a paper marriage become anything else. But you cannot live beside a person, and fight beside a person, and learn the daily good and steady truth of a person, and keep your heart frozen by an act of will forever. Ada found herself watching for the sound of Jonah's horse at evening. Jonah found that the wage and the chance to spite Kell had stopped somewhere along the way, being the reason he stayed. Each of them felt it, and each of them buried it. Both of them too proud and too scarred, and too bound by the plain terms of their bargain to risk saying the thing that might break it. The reckoning came in the courtroom and after. The judge shone the surveyor's own journal, threw August Kell's claim out cold, and ruled the Owl Creek water Sumner land beyond any further dispute. And Kell, beaten in open court in front of the whole of Halsey, exposed as the land grabber he was, rode out of town with his lawyers and his schemes, and never troubled Ada Sumner again. The land was saved. The wolf was off the water. The bargain Ada had proposed in the barn a year before had done exactly what she'd asked of it. Every bit. Which meant, of course, that it was over. The paper marriage had served its purpose. There was no more wolf to keep off, no more claim to fight, no more reason on earth for the bargain to continue. And they both knew it, riding home from the courthouse in a silence that had gone heavy as a held breath. It was Jonah who finally broke it, at the gate, the way Walter Crane and a dozen other shy, careful men have broken such silences since the world began, badly and honestly, and with his heart in his throat. "Well," he said, looking at the land instead of at her, "it's done. Land's yours, clear and safe, like I promised. Kell's whipped. The bargain's filled, both ends." He turned his hat. "So I figure this is the part where I tell you I'll be moving on, since there's no more call for a paper husband, and a deal's a deal, and I won't hold you to a thing past what you asked for." He stopped, started again, lower. "Except I find I can't quite make myself say it, Ada. Because somewhere in this year of fighting that man beside you, the paper part of it stopped being the part that mattered to me. I married you for a wage and a grudge. I'd stay now for neither. I'd stay because there's no place I've wanted to be in 20 years of drifting like I want to be right here, with you. And I'd sooner you knew it and turned me out than never know it at all." He made himself look at her. "I never planned to mean it. I mean it. Every word." And Ada Sumner, who had proposed a bargain in a barn precisely so that she would never have to risk her heart again, found that her careful, frozen heart had gone and risked itself anyway, without asking her leave. "I drew up that bargain," she said, and her voice was not steady, "so I'd be safe. Safe from Kell, and safe from this. From ever having to feel about another man the way I'd have to feel to be hurt again." She shook her head slowly. "It didn't work, Jonah. It hasn't worked for months. I watch for your horse of an evening. I've been lying to myself with that paper the same as you have." Her eyes were bright. "I never planned to mean it either. And I mean it too. Don't move on. Stay. Be my husband for real, not on paper. For good." Jonah Teal closed the distance between them, and this time, neither of them stepped apart. They had the marriage made real before the next spring. A true wedding this time, with the whole of Halsey there. The same town that had pitied the trapped widow, now glad past words to see her safe and happy and loved. The Owl Creek water ran clear and undisputed on Sumner land for the rest of their lives, and Jonah Teal, who had lost one place to a bully 20 years before, spent the rest of his days defending and building another, beside the woman who'd offered him a paper bargain and given him, in the end, a whole life. They laughed about it in their old age, the cold proposal in the barn, the businesslike wedding, the year they'd each spent so sure it was nothing, while it quietly became everything. "I asked him to marry me on paper to keep a wolf off my land," Ada would say, taking her husband's hand. "I was so certain I could keep my heart out of the deal. I built a whole life out of keeping my heart safely out of every deal." She'd smile. "Turns out the heart doesn't read the fine print. You let the right person stand beside you long enough, fighting for the same thing,
And one day you look up and the paper's gone real on you, whether you planned it or not.
Neither of us planned it, Jonah would agree.
No, Ada would say. We just had the good sense, in the end, not to let a bargain stand in the way of the best thing either of us ever stumbled into.